yeah, you have myasthenia gravis, or we think you have myasthenia gravis, you need to see a neurologist so we can confirm that diagnosis. First of all, just a privilege to be here, and I want to thank God for the opportunity just to share with all of you. And obviously, if my circumstances hadn't changed roughly a year ago, I wouldn't be here sharing with everybody. So just to basically what I'm going to talk to you about today is the two diseases that I have at the moment. The first being myasthenia gravis, and the second being Graves' disease or hyperthyroidism. Just to start off, before we jump into what are the diseases, I'll just give you a bit of family background, mainly medical, because that is the reason that I'm talking to you today. Growing up, we had no major health issues in the family, not any cancers or anything that I can remember. Generally, we ate also very healthy, thanks to my mom. She never gave us sugar as kids. We weren't allowed to have Frosties or anything like that, so we were deprived, but I'm grateful for it now. Other than that, throughout school, I never suffered from any major issues. I did have glandular fever on and off, and looking back now, I can see probably my adrenal glands are not very strong. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it and managed fairly well through school. University also, no real problems getting on there. Health was fine. I did struggle with stress, but I think everyone struggles with stress these days. In 2014, I had a thrombosis or a blood clot in my left leg. Struggled to get a definitive answer as to why that happened. The doctors put me on blood thinners for 10 days just to remove that clot and said it was a freak accident and I should carry on as normal and it shouldn't happen again. That was when I started doing a bit of research. I wasn't really active then. I mean, I looked on the internet and I also passed it off as a freak thing and just left it. So I wish from that stage that I actually had looked into my health issues from there. So we can move on to the next one, thank you. Pre-diagnosis is pretty much the stage that I, appearance-wise, look now. Obviously a bit tired and run down this morning, so my right eye is closed. But that's initially how things started for me. I waitering at Guardian Peak restaurant, drove home one evening, and was the first time I can remember having diplopia, which is double vision. And the best way for me to explain double vision to anybody is each eye sees an individual image, but they don't work together to map it into one image. So if you say this was the same hand, for argument's sake, the eyes just see the hand, one hand over each other. So you sort of see like a split screen, two of everything, as you see. And then after that, we started to notice the right eye drooping, which was clearly evident in this picture. And my mom at that stage thought I had a star. Unfortunately, it wasn't that simple. And then also at the restaurant, the kitchen staff said to me I should just put some Vicks on it, and Vicks will cure it. But unfortunately, that one didn't work either. So we went from there, and the next stage was we decided, should we see an optometrist or should we see just a general GP, and how do we start trying to figure out what's going wrong? So we decided it's not an actual eye issue. We should see the GP and see where he says we should go from there. And the GP did some basic eye tests with me, and each eye, like I said, individually can see perfectly. So I had 20/20 vision. The only thing is they're not working together. So the GP referred me to an ophthalmologist, which is an eye specialist, and he did more tests, starting with obviously just vision tests, and then he can test a little bit to do with the muscles, but he also passed me on to an eye muscle doctor, which is an orthoptist, to further try and figure out the problem. During that time was actually the first time I started to notice physical body weakness. So I wasn't doing huge exercise, but I had done good exercise the year before, and I realized that I struggled to do 10 push-ups. which is just a strange number. I mean, most guys, probably young guys, not overweight, could do about 20, let's say, and I was struggling to do more than 5 or 6 before I completely fell to the floor. So that was the one symptom that I put together with the eye problems, and through Google, or Dr. Google, I like to say, I think I diagnosed myself. And the orthoptist or eye muscle doctor was the first person to say to me, yeah, you have myasthenia gravis, or we think you have myasthenia gravis. You need to see a neurologist so we can confirm that diagnosis. And unfortunately, folks weren't doing so well at that time. I couldn't afford to subsidize my own medical aid, so I wasn't on any medical aid at the time, or still am not. So I was forced to go through the government health scheme. And that started out at Stellenbosch Municipality Hospital to try and get a referral to Tygerberg Neurology. A bit of a tough start. I mean, I sat at Stellenbosch Hospital for a week, just trying to get a letter of referral to get to Tygerberg. But I have to say, there was a doctor there that got me through the system. And when I got to Tygerberg, it was within a month or month and a half. I had an appointment at Tygerberg, and since I've been there, I haven't had any complaints. I mean, there is help for people that don't have money. There is the expertise, there is the facilities, and the only thing you have to do is, I say, pay with your time. So you have to wait, but help is available, so that was quite encouraging. We can move on to the next one, thanks. So basically, that's just the introduction to where it started for me. So now I can say, what is myasthenia gravis? I don't know if anyone here has actually heard of myasthenia gravis. So that's more than when I started. I mean, I didn't know anybody that knew it at all. So myasthenia gravis is an autoimmune muscle disease involving the nerves. And this diagram here, I won't stand in front of the screen, but if you can see it, just explains how the disease works, or how the nerves don't work, we should say. So the nerves don't actually touch the muscle receptor. There's that small gap there between the nerve and the muscle receptor, and the body attacks itself and creates antibodies which block those muscle receptors, so the nerve messages or impulses don't make it to the muscle receptor, and then you cannot contract your muscles. So the issue with myasthenia gravis is that your muscles cannot contract. So it's not that they disintegrate or just degenerate. The problem is that the message is not being received by the muscles. So if I was physically bigger, it wouldn't mean I could do more push-ups necessarily. The muscles still would not work, unfortunately. So also another organ that's related to myasthenia gravis is the thymus gland, which is behind the breastbone. Typically, as a kid, your thymus gland is quite large and it's involved with the immune system. But as you get older, the thymus gland shrinks and is not really used as an adult by the body. So in typical treatment circles, the thymus gland is often removed just to lessen that autoimmune attack, or lessen the reaction of the body attacking itself, and that's why they try and treat myasthenia. The different tests and ways to diagnose myasthenia were, they test your blood for the antibodies, and those antibodies, like I say, are created by the body attacking itself. Moving on to the symptoms, the obvious symptoms, like I said, starting out are the diplopia, which is the double vision, and the droopy eyelid. It's quite common that you have one of your eyelids drooping, but it's possible that both of them will droop at the same time. And then after that, you can have struggle with talking, chewing, swallowing, and if it is really severe, you might struggle to breathe as well. Throughout my year of having the disease, I generally have just struggled with eye symptoms, but towards the end of last year, in November, December, and even into early January, I started struggling to talk, I struggled to chew, so I couldn't finish a meal basically without using my fingers to almost manually move my mouth to chew my food. and I couldn't hold a conversation like this, for example, over a meal. The muscles almost like swelled up. Like, for example, if you went to the dentist and you had an injection, the best way I can explain is that numbness in your mouth afterwards, not being able to talk at all. So luckily, yeah, we've come forward since then. Can move on to the next one. Thanks. And then the next disease that I have is Graves' disease. It's taken a real back seat in my journey for some reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe because it's more common than Myasthenia Gravis. And Graves' disease, if you don't know, is just another name for hyperthyroidism, or the cause behind hyperthyroidism. Hyperthyroidism is the overactive thyroid, as opposed to hypothyroidism, which is more common, is an underactive thyroid. So hyperthyroidism, or Graves' disease, just sort of speeds up the body, where hypothyroidism slows it down. So naturally you struggle with things like anxiety, severe weight loss, struggle with dealing with temperature. Everything is just sped up. So I should have picked this one up earlier with the family. In the middle of winter, I'd be wearing just a t-shirt and slops, and everyone else was wearing a jacket, saying it was freezing, and I didn't understand why everybody was so cold. So that's maybe a symptom I should have picked up on earlier, but unfortunately, I've only learned what cold is like this winter. For the first time when I went down to Stellenbosch, I actually had to buy myself a pair of slippers because I couldn't handle the tiled floors, where before it wasn't an issue for me, and I thought everybody was a bit crazy saying they were cold all the time. So Graves' disease, like I said, those are the symptoms I've been through with you now. But some of the treatments which I've turned down for Graves' disease and the main one is radioactive iodine. The reason I've turned it down is just an invasive procedure. It kills off a portion, say half your thyroid, and that stops it obviously from overacting. You can say if it's overacting at 100%, they'll knock it down to 50%, and then you'll live from there. The real problem with that for me is if they overshoot and kill off too much of your thyroid, then you're stuck with an underactive thyroid. And then for the rest of your life, you will take thyroid medication just to prop up your thyroid. So for me, that is not really a solution. So I've turned that one down. We can move on to the next one.